How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. So you've been touring with Hawkwind?
Not touring as such. We do a lot of support with them. So we did. They had a Hawk Fest about a couple of months ago, I think, and we played there down in Devon. Yeah. Then we played. We supported them at the Palladium.
Yeah.
Then I think we did something else in between those, but I've forgotten already because I'm a little bit special.
Sorry.
But it was a fantastic evening. We had a really, really good time. So that was good.
So basically, right, the main documentary is basically about the positivity that metal can spread to us. And as a disabled person, obviously, in the metal community, I've never felt a sense of outcasting. I've never felt any different. There's a unity to that community. I mean, so what are your experiences with the metal community? I mean,
so for you, you found it's been a positive experience within the metal community.
Yeah,
it has. Okay, we, as far as whether the metal community is positive or negative, for us as Rockbitch, we found that there was a very solid difference between the community that is the fans and the community that is the industry.
I got you.
Very, very different. The fans are positive and supporting. The industry is not positive and supporting. It pays lip service to being positive and supporting. It's all a front. It isn't. I don't know. Did you find anything like that yourself?
Well, I've only been in a band a short time. I mean, we've been trying to, actually finding musicians actually has been difficult for us. So I can see the negativity there because this is the disabled stereotype, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they think, we're disabled, we can't do it. Like, my mission was in starting the band just to prove us disabled people like everybody else, like. So I don't know, how did you find you were outcasted within the industry?
Okay, as regards anything within the industry, I have to say it again that there's a difference between the fans and the industry.
Yeah.
So, as you know, Rockbitch was very predominantly a political and sexual and feminist and gender-orientated band. Yeah. But within that, we had a certain level of inclusivity. For us, we were involved with things like the Outsiders Trust, who funded the Sex Maniacs Ball, which then became the Night of the Senses, which was an event started by Tuppy Owens, who was wholly interested in an egalitarian approach to sexuality for everybody, able-bodied or disabled body. So that was the side of things where we were connecting, but it wasn't so much music-orientated, but it was a part of our life and our philosophy. Within the industry itself, there is a great deal of open-mindedness. I would say possibly more so than in other genres of music, but that open-mindedness comes from the fans and the audience, not from the industry itself. I will always go back to that distinction between the fans and the industry.
Yes.
Always.
Yes, so maybe this is a pitfall I have to look out for. Like, I mean, if me and my band intend on doing something, maybe there is something we have to look out for. I mean, certainly I'd fallen into the stereotype, like, but now, thankfully, we found some musicians, and hopefully we can potentially go somewhere, like,
There's a guy, and this is really awful because I've forgotten his name. I think it's Matt, but I could be completely bloody wrong on this one. He was the lead singer. I think they were actually a punk band, again, whose name I've forgotten. This isn't oppression. This is I've got a really shit memory. Blonde guy. He used to do a lot of interviews as well. He was also involved in Outsiders. Is this ringing any bells? I think it was punk. In a wheelchair. Don't know what his actual thing was.
That's the trade, yeah. That's the thing.
He's also still working as a music journalist. He was working for a particular magazine as well. I will try and find out his name, because if I can remember his name, find out, somebody else will know, then you might be interested in him very much so, because he will have the actual experience of what it is to be a disabled musician. And that, I think, is unique.
Yeah, I say, that's the thing. We, as a vocalist, I mean, obviously singing with the ventilator is quite a challenge. But it's a challenge I really enjoy it,
Yeah. What was it about you that made you choose metal? Was it that you felt it was more open-minded from the get-go?
Well, yeah, I think so. As a teenager, I sort of I felt outcasted by society. I mean, I think a lot of people in my situation probably felt the same way. I mean, obviously, sexuality for me was a big deal. As in, I never felt I was seen as a sexual being for one. And I didn't feel the world was very open-minded when I was a teenager. And metal for me was that thing that was there for me. If I came home from school, I felt sad. Usually the issue was to me, I can't do a girlfriend. I'm not the same as everyone else. To them, listening to metal, maybe so be okay with not being the same as everyone else. I mean, the themes they would sing about, good about being outcasted and different to everybody else. And that's really where metal became a massive part of my life. And also, now I've lost my brother. I mean, me and my brother were massively into metal. So it was a way of being together, you know what I mean? So after he passed, that's where metal became a pull for me. Because it was almost like listening to it, just like having him back with me, if you know what I mean. And
yeah,
so I missed him. He was my version of a life insurance there. And well, really, that's why I started a metal band. Because I wanted to find a family again.
I suppose within metal there is I think within all metal there is a huge theme of being the outsider, of being alienated, dispossessed, disconnected, and that continual deep human urge to make those connections. I would have thought that punk has also got that element within it, but maybe it's a little less musical in many ways, unless you go to the Stranglers. So if you actually want music, then you've got to go metal, and then you've got the whole range of things from just mindless head down thrash to the technological mastery of Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai. You've got everything. So I guess you get to hit every kind of emotive arena that you could possibly want. It does seem to be the right arena, yeah. But as far as it's been accepted within it, I don't know. It's very much down to your experience, isn't it? For us as the band Rockbitch, our acceptance within the music industry, because although we were all able-bodied, we did have with the niche, the classic niche of being female. We had the niche of having various. We had an Indian girl, an African girl, whatever the current politics are for the appropriate words. I'm going to say brown and black.
Yeah.
So they had their own specific encounters and experiences. And as far as able-bodied or disabled bodies are concerned, we were always made sure that our venues had as much accessibility as possible. We'd do what we could. But was it reciprocated within the music? I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it definitely was. It is the way to go, isn't it? I think from our perspective, again, Rockbitch was a sex-orientated band. We always felt that sex was the universal language, and combining it with music was a necessity, because music is a universal language. You don't need to understand the lyrics in order to relate to the emotive feel behind something.
Yeah.
An emotive feel is vital in metal, I think.
Yeah, I felt that also. I mean, obviously, with my time with the Outsiders, I was, this is where I really began to understand myself as a sexual being, like I said. I mean, I've always stood for that type of thing. I mean, like you said, after school, I thought, it was never going to happen to me. I was never going to find a relationship. And then I proved myself wrong. Right? And the funny thing for me is, I had relationships with able-bodied women, and I was almost going to get married and have children at one point. But tragically, my brother died around that time. So, I found it very difficult to sort of commit, to concentrate, to really want to stay in that relationship. And also, I had a feeling of, my partner was able-bodied. She didn't really understand me, in the sense of she tried. She loved me a lot, but I felt she never got the disability, as in she couldn't understand my barriers and how hard I was trying, So then my belief was, I want to find someone who's in exactly my situation. And this is really from the Outsiders. And that's when I got in touch with Tim Ewens, because I was already a motivational speaker. Speaking about sexuality and the fact that you can have sex with a disabled person, that you can have a relationship, and you can be happy. That was not something I'm keen to teach, and that's what I was doing at the time. So, I was accepted. I was very welcome, the outsiders, because I didn't feel different,
Yeah.
So we were all disabled, we all knew what it was like, and we were all keen to have the same experience. So, I really enjoyed my time with them, right?
It's a difficult thing when you're growing up, when anybody's growing up, because you go through stages of personal development. And if you are disabled or have some kind of different abilities or any kind of issue within your life that impacts on your day-to-day abilities, how do you know that any problems that you might be having are not down to that issue or are down to that issue? It's like you've got a separate problem that everybody else doesn't have.
Yeah.
So whilst you're trying to develop yourself as a person, trying to view yourself as a sexual individual and grow, you've yet got this particular log in your path that other people don't have. But within that, there's a temptation to then, you've got to steer away from the awkwardness of blaming everything on that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's very, very difficult. I think it's where, and this can be seen as incredibly patronizing as coming from an able-bodied person, where some people with a disability blame everything on their disability.
Absolutely.
And it's not, it's that they're a dick.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to grow beyond that, because an able-bodied person can be a dick and you can tell them they're being a dick.
Absolutely right.
So it's a real barrier within communication, something that able-bodied and disabled-bodied people, in a sense, it's got nothing to do with your abilities. It's down to the growth of personhood.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
We're not taught that. We don't learn that.
Absolutely, yeah. It does take a long time to realize that as well, doesn't it? So
I guess music is something that helps with that. Again, bringing it back round to the subject of music.
Yeah,
music is a place where you lose yourself, and nothing is relevant at all except for the things that you're resonating with. So that's vital.
See, this is why I knew I had to speak to you guys, because you really are what my documentary is about. Do you understand me as a disabled person? And the fact you said you were wrong with the outsiders, well, I was shocked with that, because I'm like, I knew you were the right people. Like, do you understand more than most? I think.
I try. There's a thing, again, what I was speaking about a moment ago about trying not to be patronizing. There's an element within which, if you're speaking to, say, okay, I'm a white person, I'm speaking to someone who's black, they have obviously had a very different life experience to me. But if I tread too carefully around their sensibilities, then I'm being patronizing and not treating them as a human being. And I have to try and be careful not to be too careful, whatever the subject matter is. That's a difficult thing for anybody, of course. And that's not to say, oh, I've got this problem. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. It's just communication is everything, and you have to start, you have to try, and you have to make mistakes and be open to those moments of vulnerability and pain on both sides. And as human beings, we are not good at that. Yeah. Every interaction that we have that involves communication has a level of innate biological hierarchy. Yeah. Any communication, somebody is communicating, the other person's receiving, and we can't help but perceive that as a power exchange. Yeah. And for someone that's already struggling, it means they're always at the shit end of the wedge. How do we overcome that? I guess we overcome that by looking not at the situation, but by looking at something together, like music. That's true. We look at music together, we enjoy the experience of music together. That means we can relate to each other as human beings better. So it always comes back to sex and music at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Yeah, but no, that's right. I mean, absolutely right. I mean, you get, obviously we've got the Black Rights Matter movement and transgender campaign and feminists and things like that. But I truly believe, rather than fighting as a separate force, we should all fight together. Just exactly like you said today. If we want equality, then rather than me fighting as a disabled person, and you're fighting as a feminist, fighting together, I think is the way to go. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I've always believed that.
there is a difficulty in the process of raising awareness for any subject, which is that, yes, speaking from within the subject, speaking from within the position of being female, for you speaking within the position as a disabled individual, you're looking outwards from this place. You have to raise awareness. But then the raising awareness becomes a process of isolation within itself.
Yeah.
We have to try and come at things from the other direction, break down that isolation. Very, very difficult. And communication is the key for that.
It's hard to see outside your fight. You are right there. Really, we need to look from outside the spectrum rather than inside the spectrum, I think.
You know, there's a strange thing, which is if you go back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, as far as music is concerned, it used to be very tribal. I don't know how it was at your school, but at my school, you would have the punks, you would have the goths, you would have the metalheads, you'd have the whatever the different categories are, and they were tribal, they were separate, and each of them hated each other. And it does seem to me that over time that there has been a lessening of that divisiveness, that you can actually like all kinds of music now. And so although as human beings we need that sense of belonging within a small group to express ourselves, it seems to have become a little bit more egalitarian, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's really another thing about my documentary is what I'm trying to spread. Maybe it's not just about the love of metal. Maybe it's the love of music in general, you know?
Maybe we're maturing as a species and coming at music rather than coming from music.
Yeah, exactly.
Feedback cycle of spirituality and expression going down, finally.
We've met my feeling of family. I mean, where was Rockbitch to you? Was you like your family? I mean, obviously you all live together, so you must feel like your family, right?
We, as far as Rockbitch and our community is concerned, we absolutely feel like a family. We've been together for, some of us, nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you're aware of the background behind Rockbitch, but we're a coven of witches.
Yeah.
And a sex commune.
Yeah.
For us, our spirituality, our sexuality, and our music as a creative force have always been inextricably linked. Yeah. And so we are, yes, absolutely a family, an incestuous family, shall we say. But yes, we're a family and a tribe. So we take a lot of strength from that. Definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is why I started a band, really. It was my brother, I felt alone, and I thought metal was my medium, and I wanted to find others who believed the same as me and wanted the same as me, you know. And finding that, it really did give me a sense of belonging.
One of the things that we found living together as a commune is once it got past the point where people were thinking, oh, they'll grow out of it, it's a phase. We never really thought that, but we started thinking about our longevity as a group of people. And an aspect of that was the aging process.
Yeah.
We don't know who's going to end up in a wheelchair, who's going to have illness, who's going to die, how it's going to go. So we've always, any building that we live in, we've made sure it's wide enough for a wheelchair. Yeah. We've got ramps. We've got walk-in bathrooms as much as we possibly can, things like that. So it's not only just for laying down for our future, it means that any guests or friends that we have, we've got, again, I like the phrase egalitarian, an egalitarian approach to connecting with people as individuals. Yeah. And of course, we'll never escape the music because we're musicians at the end of the day. We can't stop. Yeah. We just can't stop, as I'm sure you've discovered in your life. You might try and put down music, but you just can't.
Yeah, no, but stay away from it. But that's right, that's absolutely right approach. And I think that's the approach that people need in most relationships is that one day any of us can be disabled. And to be fair for that fact, maybe and to always entertain that idea, maybe. And then to go around, all right, my partner may be disabled, but he or she is no different to anybody else. Like, and really, as a disabled person, maybe that's my pursuit. Just to get everybody to see each other as equal and the same, like, you know? Yeah.
There's a science fiction story I'm trying to remember desperately at the moment, but it's gone out of my head. So I won't even enter the story because the point I'm making is completely lost if I can't remember the name. So I'll just move away from that particular gem there. We used to know a guy, he'd had a motorcycle accident and was completely paralyzed from the waist down. Excuse me. So he'd had a motorcycle accident, was completely paralyzed. And I think we met him at a gig. We didn't meet him through the Outsiders. Yeah. He was very much into metal. He had a pimped up trike, which he could basically get his wheelchair on. Yeah. It was fucking awesome, looked incredible, had all these, just the paint job, the everything of it. He was into BDSM, which he'd entered into after his accident because he discovered that the extremes of both physical sensation, but also the more rigidly but creatively delineated expressions of power dynamics between two or more people were a better way for him to connect with his own sexuality. So he got into it that way. He used to use he had the ability to get an erection, but he used to use an injection in order to get one. He couldn't feel anything, but he'd get one. Yeah. So in our experience, he was one person, a male, that had the traditional penetrative techniques and abilities, even though he couldn't feel them. On the other side of the scale, we met people who had no sensation whatsoever. Yeah. There was another guy from a diving accident and didn't get erections. He had to explore his sexuality in a completely different shape and form. Another guy who was so physically disconnected from himself that the sensations he could only get off on were very, very, very extreme indeed. And to many people, they find them disturbing or disgusting. Yeah. But all these experiences, bringing them back around to music and acceptance within the metal industry or the metal sphere, I do think that if people knew the nitty-gritty of their day-to-day, that a metal fan would be a little bit more accepting. Exactly. And it's actually one of the reasons that we changed our musical style. I don't know if you know this. When Rockbitch first started, it was much more rock and it was lighter and poppier. Yeah. We were living in France at the time, and the style of music that was appropriate for getting gigs, because we toured all the time, it needed to be lighter. But as our philosophy evolved, or rather as the expression of what we wanted to say in public evolved, we discovered that there was a mismatch between what we wanted to do and the sound of the music. Yeah. We had to heavy up our music in order for the extremes of sexuality and our politics to fit and to sit right. Yeah. The mindset wasn't correct. So it does seem that in our experience that there is a certain amount of acceptingness within the public. Yeah, not other bands.
Yeah, there's a huge link between metal and sexuality, and maybe that is the pull for me. I mean, so my recent documentary was with Rhys television, but it's groundbreaking in the sense of I've never heard anybody. I've heard people say that as disabled people can have sex, but nobody really entered the physical intimacy of it. That nobody ever talked about the logistics of actually having sex in every situation. And as the motivational speaker, and kids in my situation always said to me, so how do you do it? I mean, everybody says we can, but how do you actually do it? Yeah. And see, this was the whole point of my documentary, because to say those things, this is how I do it. So maybe you can find a similar way. So this is not the exact way to do it, it's just how I do it. So, and to show people these things are possible, I think everybody in society maybe can learn a thing or two from it. Because I notice it's more the able-bodied people to say, speak about, how do I have sex and things like that. I mean, I think it's a positive way to go. And also, BDSM for me was a whole because of metal, like you said, and it is a way that I can express myself more. I mean, so I was in my last partner, we were in a polyamorous relationship. Mm-hmm. And so that was a very exciting time in my life. I experienced a lot of things sexually. And really, this is why I wanted to bridge to others in my situation. So look what I've done. You can have these experiences too. So good or bad, maybe it's something that a lot of us need to experience,
I think as far as sex is concerned, for anybody at all, and something that as a band Rockbitch we were always trying to express was that there is a difference between sex for reproductive purposes and sex for recreational purposes. And across the planet, of course, we're going to be biologically obsessed with perpetuating the species. It's hardwired into our brains and our biology. That's what we're meant to do as an animal, as the human animal. But since we've developed consciousness, which can be a plus and a negative, sex is for recreation as well. It's a creative thing. And as such, the traditional idea of a cock and a cunt for heterosexuals, or any kind of things that are to do with perpetuating the species, are a very narrow, rigid definition of what sex is. That's for babies. Sex with a capital S for pleasure, that's where you've got to explore. And as a disabled person, an able-bodied person has also got the problem. No, let me start that again. An able-bodied person also has the problem of overcoming the concepts that sex is for reproduction. But a disabled person has then got to go the next level and find out how the hell to do it, which is exactly what you've been speaking about, the specific and unique problems. But if everybody viewed sex as being something beyond mere reproduction, then it would be easier for everybody, able-bodied and disabled-bodied, to look at it as a source of, well, how do I do this? Not what am I meant to be doing? What is right, what is proper, what is acceptable, what is okay, what is societal standards? We have to move beyond those in all spheres.
I mean, that's only because of my situation, isn't it? I mean, a lot of us do find it difficult to find relationships. I mean, I don't think it's a confidence thing. I think it's that we all want maybe an able-bodied woman rather than a disabled person, I would say. But like you said, go a lot beyond that. And I think if able-bodied people could see, I mean, a lot like you guys do, is that having sex with a disabled person, it isn't a bad thing, because spiritually and sexually, like you said, if we come up beyond the reproductive thing, people like me would have relationships. More often.
I think, I do think that as far as, let me think this through a little bit. I believe that as far as an able-bodied person's perspective of the appropriateness or possibility of having a sexual relationship with a disabled person, I think that there is an underpinning preconception that comes from Christian morality. And by that, what I mean is, again, Christianity is all about perpetuating the species and being morally correct. A disabled-bodied person, they're instantly different. And from the point of view of Christianity, anything different is bad. That might be a kind of convoluted, roundabout way of looking at things. And I'm not saying that within Christianity, it's going to say, don't have sex with disabled people, it's against the word of the Lord. It's not like that. It's an underpinning of perceptions.
Absolutely.
It's one man, one woman for certain things, and that's that. You step outside of those parameters and you've got a problem. And as such, our Western civilization, which has dealt with so many problems, and we're in an incredible place at the moment, regardless of what our woke generation says, we have got more freedom than we've ever had in our lives, more less sexual violence, more equality. It's an extraordinary time to be alive. Yet we still have to go back to examining the background, the underpinning of our own history that's brought us to these mindsets.
That's right.
To what extent would anybody have or dismiss the possibility of a relationship or even a sexual relationship with a disabled person? Where do those preconceptions come from? Yes, there might be a certain level of, okay, I don't know what to do. Or bodies are awkward, or maybe there's a mess I don't know about. These things are understandable and they're human nature, and you can get over this with communication. But where is the morality within it? And I believe that there is a morality in it that has to be attacked. It's anti-sex in itself, not just anti-disabled, but anti-sex, full stop. But then I will always go on about that particular.
No, absolutely. It's what I've always thought is, the world isn't black and white. I think we all need to look beyond it. That's something that my perspective always been. Being disabled is a unique opportunity to be sexually creative, because we have to be different to everybody else. And I look at it as an exciting challenge rather than negative, And it really is. You can be, you can experiment so much in this situation.
If you think about it, there's this might be a bit weird, but if you think about it, there's a whole load of Indian sadhus who have almost put themselves in a state of deliberate disability to achieve a different level of spirituality.
Yeah.
On the whole, they're ascetic, they're not sexual. But you can imagine the guys that stand there with their hand up for 25 years until they can no longer move their hands, or they don't sit down, or they do all these other things that are against the body. If they then took the next step and became sexual individuals, then maybe they'd achieve a different type of spirituality. Yeah. But I can see how putting yourself in a state of challenge is a very positive way to go about looking at a disability. Because you can say what I've just said, looking at a disability. If you have an issue, you're not looking at it, you're inhabiting it. And you either go down or you get creative. Yeah, exactly. And if you're alive, you've got to get creative. It's the only way. We're lucky enough to be alive.
Because we're really doing, you have to embrace the situation, no matter how negative you think it is. In the first place, but yeah, I truly believe if society would change, I think a lot of us in our situation would feel a lot better. And I think that's my entire message to read about the racial speaker is that, we're all the same. And we can get along a lot better if we have that mentality, I believe.
Oh God, yes. Equality is the only way forward. Do you know, I think it's very important to distinguish between the mindset of saying that society needs to change and blaming society.
Yeah.
Because this is in many ways, this is a subtle thing, because when you see something that needs to be changed, you become active, you become angry, you protest against it. It is a mistake to attribute motive to the necessity for change. There's not some big bad, shall we say, what's the current bugbear? It's the sort of the white male in his 60s.
Yeah,
there's not some big bad white male in his 60s behind the word society deciding that disabled people mustn't be sexual, women must be kept down, gender issues are this, that. There's nobody in charge. There's nobody in control. We are at this position in history because of history. You have to understand history to understand yourself and then to make changes about it. Yeah. But if you go too far in one direction of blame, you become a victim. And that's different from accepting the parameters of problems, if that makes any kind of sense. It's all the same thing, but it's a different direction of flow. And I think at the moment, from my perspective, our current society of activism is very much blame orientated.
Yeah, it is. I think we need to help society change rather than trust them to change. So you can do it in an entirely peaceful, non-agenda way, can't you? I mean, that's a way we need to go. That rather than thinking I'm the victim, but just understand the society is got issues with that and sort of help them overcome that issue, I would say.
Nobody's to blame. It's nobody's fault. Yeah. I guess this again comes back around to music, which is, once again, it can be a gentle or a brutal way of raising awareness for different things. Right. Do you have a certain, like if you're feeling down or depressed or something like that, do you have a certain track that you go for, a certain album, a certain band?
Generally, I generally am an angry person. Inside. I like Slayer. I love Slayer. I mean, Radiant Blood for me is the album that I would go to, because they're angry and it's a positive angry though. So it really does get that emotional to me, and it helps me deal with my frustrations, I would say. Thrash metal. I mean, that's really my greatest love, but so yeah, it is that.
I think it's a psychologically well-known fact that if you're feeling depressed, you don't listen to happy music. Yeah. That doesn't make you happy. That makes you more goddamn depressed. You have to listen to the music that is the flavor of the emotion that you're feeling in order to process that feeling and enter into a different state. So I think metal music, with all of its anger, positive anger, plays a very, very important part in the role of self-development and self-awareness.
Exactly, and that's when it goes down to having a disability. It's not having a disability because it's helped me deal with my condition. And it really has, and that's the positivity of music.
It's like taking it's like a pressure cooker, isn't it? It takes a little bit of the edge off the boil so that you can re-evaluate the situation, come back to it calm, whatever it is, day-to-day frustrations or a specific event, start over. Life is a process of starting over, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, back to music now. And my last question to you is, what does metal and music mean to you?
Oh, right. Hold on. Let me readjust my position, have a sit down. So you've specifically asked me, what does metal and music mean to me? Give me a second. I have to distinguish between music and metal. Although metal is music, music is a far greater ranging aspect of flavors and tastes than just metal. So
maybe
when I say
just metal,
what does metal mean to me specifically? Metal for me has been the perfect vehicle of expression for my sexual, feminist, gender politics.
Yeah.
Because they are so extreme, even though I don't think they're that extreme, frankly, because my gender politics are so extreme, you can't express that kind of opinion using classical music or pop. And for us, the band Rockbitch, we needed to be metal rather than punk, because many people might disagree with this, but from my perspective, punk is very often a less skilled genre of music. Metal has a wider skill set. That's a different fight. Okay. Metal music was the right vehicle for Rockbitch to express its gender politics within. It was in your face. It was offensive. It was direct, brutal, visceral, but yet had the arena wherein we could express our skills as musicians. And for us, we couldn't express our politics without musicianship, because if it was just our sexual politics, which came out in the forms of extreme exhibitionism, then that would have just been doing it for the actions. Almost, it would have been the hypocrisy of the music industry that we were fighting against. We had to be able to express our musicianship. And so metal was perfect for that. It had the anger, it had the confrontationalism, and it had the musicianship. Vital.
So I could have said I meant it myself. I mean, literally.
I think I went down in circles a couple of times there, because the thing is I'm a ranter. I'm a ranter.
I do that as well.
And I've had to learn that it's important to, although when you're trying to make a point, not to try and make all the points at once. To try and keep it down to one point. And sometimes I just lose my shit. I guess at the end of the day, I'm an angry person as well. I don't want to be angry. And metal music gives me an ability, it gives me an arena in which to process and channel my anger.
That's right. Thank you.
In a direct and productive manner. That's what metal is for me.
No, it's fantastic. Honestly, don't make them brothers any better. If there was a right answer, that was it.
That's pretty awesome.
But
I got lucky on that one, hey?
That was awesome. Dura, I'd like to work with you in future.
Where are you actually based? Are you in Wales?
I live in Wales, yeah. I live in Pontypridd.
Whereabouts?
Pontypridd, so Rockbitch and town.
You fucking don't.
Yeah.
I went to Polytechnic in Pontypridd.
Yeah, that's right. I did.
I fucking did. Shitting hell.
Yeah,
did you go there as well?
That's right.
Did you go to Pontypridd Polytechnic, or did you go elsewhere?
I went to the university around there. So maybe it wasn't Polytechnic back then. Yeah, I think it must have been.
Fuck, that's hilarious.
I graduated.
But I only stayed for less than a year. I didn't last long at all. I was, shall we say, I was too angry.
Very angry.
Here's the thing: is I don't like people very much.
I agree.
I don't like. I'm a little bit like. Do you know the author Mark Twain, the guy that wrote Huckleberry Finn?
Yeah, that's right.
He once wrote something about how collectively he doesn't like humans. He doesn't like the human race. He doesn't like people. He likes individuals.
That's right. That's right.
And unfortunately, my time when I was in higher education, I was exposed very much to what I felt was not individuals, but people. And I couldn't stand it. And at that point, I'd spent my life aiming for academia. That was my whole be all and end all. And I met the band who at that point was a different type of music.
Yeah.
But it was still a coven of witches. They weren't living as a commune at that point, but I met them and knew immediately that my life was going to take a radically different direction. Yeah. But I felt because I'd been so aimed towards academia that I had to at least go. So I went to Pontypridd, which I'd chosen because A, I love Wales. My family's half Welsh. Yeah. Now the accent's going to start coming out. And B, because I wanted to be as far away from my family as possible, to have that experience of being an autonomous person. Yeah. Not be anywhere near anything I knew, to not feel safe, to not feel secure. I wanted that challenge. But I bloody hated everyone. So it's after a couple of terms, I'm buggered off.
That's probably why you understand this as disabled people, because good generally all feel the same. You know, people do sick, but individuals are all right then.
I think there's, let me think. One aspect of, I think, being able to connect, or at least relate without being patronizing to someone who is not able-bodied, is the concept that we are not our bodies. Yeah. That we are a mind that happens to be trapped within a body, and whatever shape or form that body takes is irrelevant. So from my perspective as a very sexual individual, I have not been, I don't fuck people because of their attractiveness. No, I fuck them because there is a place that we can go to discover something else as people.
Yeah, Fabio.
And it doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter how old they are, doesn't matter their color, doesn't matter how many legs they've got, doesn't matter a goddamn. So I've got a wide spectrum. And I think for me, it's a little bit easier, but for other people, you've got to go back to that drawing board and erase things in order to be able to relate to people differently. We have to grow as individuals in order to be able to relate, I think.
It's true, that mentality could change the world, it really could. So this is why people need a bit like this more.
Do you know, if it came down to me to change the world, I don't know that many people would like it. I think I might be a liberal fascist.
Maybe we just need to be different. Maybe we need to be the ones who are different.
Maybe so.
So I stand for everything you stand for, you know. And
we are very, very lucky because I accept it. We are white. We are living in the West. We don't have to live hand to mouth, day to day. You've got your breathing apparatus gear that helps you. You've probably got all kinds of tech that helps you.
Yeah.
Go a few countries over to the right, you'd be dead at birth.
No, exactly.
We've got this incredible luxury that we can learn to grow as people. I don't put that down at all. I just accept that it is a luxury. Yeah. But that means that it's my responsibility and your responsibility to take full opportunity.
That's right.
Because it's there. But yeah, I'm sorry, going back to Pontypridd, I can't believe that's where you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are you up to in the future? What are your plans?
Well, after this documentary, I did a wrap-up in my band, Critical Summit, but so the documentary I made with Welsh Television is out in January. So, you know, hopefully that will take it to places, you know. So,
do you know what channel that's out on, or where it is?
It'll be on S4C.
Okay. Would you send me send that to me in a text?
Yeah, I don't
remember.
Yeah.
And I'd like to catch that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Have you seen our new music, what we're doing nowadays?
No, I haven't. Yeah, I mean the old stuff I know, right?
Yeah, I bet you do, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we took about 2 years off after we came back from America. We took, I think it was 2 or 3 years off because we were no, I'm sorry, I've got this wrong. We were in France. We'd had a lot of political opposition to us. We'd had a lot of dirty tricks with people pulling in bomb scares, threatening the licenses of the venues that we'd play at, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Saying that we broke the law, and we didn't. We never broke the law. Yeah. We were so sick of it that we took time out of music. Being musicians, we can't stop, of course. We went to America, changed our style of music a bit there, so we weren't as metal.
Yeah.
Had a good time there, but basically realized that we were living in what was essentially a very Christian culture.
Yeah,
that as far as being pagan, pro-sex, promiscuous, feminist metalheads.
And they were never going to accept that, right?
No, never. I was going to say acceptance in America, in the metal community in America, is a very different thing from acceptance in Europe. Very different. So we came back over here, quit music for a while, and then went, no, we can't quit music, we're musicians. Changed the name of the band. We now keep all of our sexuality and our politics backstage and hidden, but we're still musicians. It still comes out in the creative process and in the words. Yeah, so have a look at our new music. It's not as heavy as it was. See what you think of that. But maybe one day we'll see you at a gig.
Yeah, also, right, I can definitely go there.
That would be cool.
No, thank you for that.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I hope this goes well for you.
Yeah,
tell me when it comes out, or what the platform it's going to be on.
Yeah, we've got a plan at the moment. Once I finish, then I'll put it together, and then I want to try and find a television channel that we're really interested in. So for me, I've never made a documentary before, really. So it's all on my back. So we'll see where it goes, like, really.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not so much the TV channels. Maybe Netflix might be up for something like that.
Yeah.
There's a greater imbalance in who's going for what within the different services now. They can be quite radical in many ways.
But when it comes to promotion, I not going to get you involved, like, because just that's a new thing to me. So we'll see where it goes, like.
Fingers crossed and see how it goes, indeed.
All right.
All right, then. It's been a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you. Bye. Have a good day.
Take care.